previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, 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 Draw-Along.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. Now let me set the mood. I've got a new backing track this week, one that I've compiled. So I've got my levels at 15. I think that's safe. Can't hear it very loud here, but on playback, my music sometimes is a bit on the loud side. So yes, hello once again. Thanks for joining me here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, where I encourage everyone to get your pencils, pens, brushes, and styluses at the ready, and hopefully follow me with whatever I'm doing. Now you can see here, I've been working on the Clash of the Goliaths. So let me make this bigger. There. Okay, do you want to see me? Not particularly, but there I am anyway. So we've gotten to the point of the inking. You saw the introduction. We went through the construction and the basic inking over the last couple of weeks. So now we're doing what's called the spotting, but we're putting in the black areas. You see here, right, there's the pencils. So we've done original Goliath already. Now we're into black Goliath, putting in his blacks. But while I was gone from you, I noticed something with my other Goliath. Now, I've been a naughty boy because, remember we've been discussing, we've got a light source, a classic comic light source. We're imagining the light source is here, where they will clash. It's quite unique to superhero comics that you can imagine a light source from a point of action. And taking that into account, I've been looking back at my original Goliath. So let's switch off black Goliath. I'm working digitally, so I can have my things in layers. Of course, if you're working on paper, you don't have this flexibility, but the principles of inking still remain, okay? So if we switch off black Goliath, let's look at original Goliath. And I've made a mistake, haven't I? If the light source, okay, if the light source is here, there should be shadows on the far side of this leg. Now you see that? I'm such an honest artist. I'm prepared to point out my nonsense live in front of you. Gotta keep it honest. What's man without honesty? So I'm going back to my original Goliath and I'm going to adjust my spotting here. Now here are my pencils. Let's keep this 100%, shall we? Let's come in here. Let's fix our pencils. Now for those of you who've been here before, what is it I always say about pencils? Keep those pencils light. Indeed, keep those pencils light. But of course, I am working digitally, so I can make mine light at any time. But I'm trying to make this as authentic as possible, what I'm doing here. I don't want to do something digitally that I wouldn't encourage traditionally. There is, of course, advantages with doing things digitally. I mean, you could do things like this. You can fix things, dare I say, much easier. So let's put on our spotting. Whoops. My spotting is on the same layer as my main pencils. Was I supposed to do that? No, I don't think I was meant to do that. Here we are. Yeah, they are my pencils. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's 6 p.m. if you're in the States. It's 7 a.m. here in Singapore. I'm coming to you from Singapore. And I've just done my rough workout. Few push-ups and the rest of it. And I don't think I'm with it. I'm out of thoughts. Is my music still playing? I can't hear it. Yeah, it's there, isn't it? Yeah, it's there. Maybe I should be using headphones. I digress. So here we are. So I'm going to fix this light source for the spotting. So I'm going to come down here. And remember, we went through a chapter on the style of rendering. And I've got my hatching coming out from the blacks, parallel, which I call that gradation. A gradation style of hatching. Okay, come into the light source again. Now, quite often, when I'm making changes like this, when you're inking your own pencils, you don't have to go through to the original pencils and fix anything, because you do it during the inking process. But as I said, I'm trying to keep it real. So I'm going to go back to my pencils layer and fix my bad behavior very organically, let's say. So now we got a light source coming from, in fact, that imaginary point of impact. Put some shadow in his boots. Now look at the size of those boots, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the size of it. You know who that's influenced by? None other than the late, great Gene Colan. That man used to draw Captain America's boots. Huge! And I always liked it. Very much liked the way he drew his boots. You don't get many bigger than Gene Colan. So here, come down to the calf area. Okay, a bit of shadow from under the upper thigh. Now on this far side, we're going to get a shadow because the light source is in front. We accentuate that thigh muscle. And for those of you who might have tuned in again, I was here very early this morning on Late Night Art Attack with Raoul Monsieur. That goes out on a Friday night, 1 a.m. or very early Saturday morning if you like. 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. Today, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along is a bit shorter. I'm here for an hour and a half. So I will be here up until 7:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 8:30 a.m. Singapore. I haven't even had my coffee yet. Don't you feel sorry for me? Okay, now that light source looks more correct. Now, so here's my original spotting. I'm going to duplicate that. Let's make it 100% so you can see what's going on, man. So there's the original spotting. Here's a new spotting. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to remove. I've duplicated it in case of any nasty accidents. I'm going to come in here and remove this original shading. I'm using the lasso tool to select large areas, something that you can do digitally, or of course, you can just use the eraser tool. So I did that, and I also show you this. Come in and take this out. There. Good. So now we've got this is the new hatching here. So I'm going to merge these two layers. Now, good etiquette of layering. I'm coloring my layer palettes so I know what's going on. Good. So now that light source on his leg is more in line with where we were discussing before. The light source is coming from in front of him. So I'm going to add a bit more of a shadow to the far side of this leg. There. I'm going to add a little bit more here. Jolly good. Jolly good. Over here. Now you've got to make sure that your hatching is consistent with the rest of the image. You can see my light sourcing here was quite brutal. You can see here. Now I've been a bit light. I've been a bit light with my hatching on this side. So let me beef this up a bit. Will you please beef that up? Okay, this is looking a bit more like the other side. Oh, I can see I've got a few people watching. Thanks so much for tuning in to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. Do send any questions that you may have. I'm drawing the Clash of the Goliaths. And this is who I call original Goliath. And I'm showing my age now. There was two Goliaths. One, this guy with this kind of outfit, and the other one that I drew previously, excuse me, had a yellow and blue and sometimes red and blue costume. But I think it was, I don't think it was the same guy. I think one was Hank Pym and one was also Hawkeye. What was Hawkeye's real name? I can't remember Hawkeye's real name. If anyone out there can remember Hawkeye's original name, please drop it in the chat. I'm having a mental blank. It's too early here on a Sunday morning. Okay, good. So I've done my spotting here. So let's go back to this spotting. And I'm now going to, see, here's my spotting, yeah? I'm making an executive decision. I am indeed going to get rid of this spotting. So go down. I'm using the lasso tool, and in one go, I can delete all of that back. So I'm going to make it lighter. My pencils. Come out my spotting there. Remember, I kept the original pencils. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to get rid of that. I definitely don't need that. That's wrong. I don't like to keep mistakes. Sometimes it helps, but nah. I've made my decisions, and I shall stick by them. How about that? So here's our spotting. So the first thing I'm going to put in is the light source coming in on the buttons on his boots. Then I'm going to come in here. I'm going to spot this. Now, if you were here for the introduction, you saw I was calling this spotting, ink spotting. So I'm just doing the large areas of black. The hatching, the shading, I am going to leave to a totally separate layer. I've mentioned before that there are a lot of artists out there that don't always use hatching. I think one of the most prevalent of these, one of the most well-known, I would say is probably a gentleman by the name of Bart Sayers. He is, of course, a master of light sourcing, but he doesn't do a lot of hatching. And I, in fact, on one of my comics I currently have available from Thunderzone, a comic by the name of SupaCross, I also exercised the same thing. There's not much hatching in that comic. I did a lot of spotting, but only on the bad guys. The good guys have no solid blacks, so to speak of. Only the bad guys have solid blacks. All of the shading, all of the dark areas on the good guys is left up to the coloring, which is in fact quite a modern way of illustrating superhero comics. If you look at a lot of the newer, some of the more recent superhero comics, you'll notice that there isn't a lot in the way of hatching going on. A lot of the shading is in fact done by the coloring. And this is probably for a couple of reasons. One, for sure, is sometimes tastes change. You know, things become old-fashioned. That could be part of the reason. And of course, the biggest reason, I suspect, is saving time. You'll find that throughout mankind's evolution, time is a big factor with why things evolve, or change at least. No, it doesn't always mean that something improved, but if you can get it done faster, what is it they say? Time is money. So if you can get it done faster, but there's always a danger, isn't there? What's that saying? Less haste, more speed. Or is it more speed, less haste? Of course, yes, you run a risk of doing something quicker, more efficiently, but artistically speaking, doesn't land. People don't like it. Always a risk. So let me just dump my areas of black now into the spotting. I remember doing this traditionally. Whoops, I should put an accent here. Hold on. I've got a contour here. I'm going to put an accent there. Good. I remember doing this manually, or the spotting. You designate all your areas on your artboard, and you go back in at the end and you drop in all your blacks. I particularly like doing it when listening to music or listening to one of my favorite TV shows. Inking is very therapeutic. I find it to be very therapeutic. It can be a bit nerve-wracking, but when you've designated where your shadows are and you're pretty sure of what you're spotting, it can be quite relaxing. I find that personally. Now look at me. What a good boy I am. Look at this cleanup that I'm doing. See all these little bits where my paint bucket couldn't get? Let's zoom in. Let's get close, boy. See that? I'm touching all these little bits of black. Now from a distance, you probably wouldn't see these, but I'm a little bit of a tidy freak when it comes to inking. I don't like little bits left out. I do a bit of teaching out here in Singapore. In fact, I had my class this morning. It's on a Saturday morning and a Wednesday evening. And one of the biggest things with the students is the inking being not the tidiest. But it's like tidying your bedroom. There. Okay, now Goliath, his light source is more consistent with the light source coming from the point of impact. So now we can get back to our friend, Black Goliath. You can see we made quite a lot of progress with his spotting before we left last week. So here's his spotting. I'm now going to get my paint bucket and I can drop in here. I love this guy's mask. You notice that the mask comes down his neck? Because a bit of his chest is exposed here. Oh man, these old school costumes, absolutely brilliant. Now look at me. Oh yes, I've actually done a lot of changes myself here. I've changed a lot of what I intended originally. Yep, good. Oh, there's a few people. Sorry, people, I've been ignoring you. It looks like we've got a few people watching. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. We've got one comment here. I think that's Dan Sen, Argo Comics. Hawkeye is Clint Barton, but Black Goliath was the coolest. Correct. Thank you for that, Dan. That's Dan Sen there from Argo Comics and Thunder Zone, who I just mentioned earlier. I've got my title SupaCross with. He's quite right. Hawkeye is Clint Barton, and he was this Goliath. Bill Foster is Black Goliath, but the original Goliath was Dr. Hank Pym. You know, my wife laughs at me sometimes. She says that me and my fanboy brigade, you know, all of us fanboys, that we talk about superheroes as if they actually exist. I said, well, to us, they do. You know, I always imagine a scenario. Imagine if Stan Lee had decided to make up his own religion called the Church, the House of Marvel. How many of us kids would have bought into it? Interesting concept. Because I tell you what, I think we fanboys, we treat comics almost a bit like a religion. I've heard some arguments between fanboys about characters winning fights. I can tell you something now firsthand. I'm going to make a very controversial statement here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, which could get me cancelled or snubbed by the greater comics community. But I'm an honest guy. I've got to tell the truth about things. And I have to confess that in later life, I have to admit, I started to find Batman to be a very lame character. Now, before you bite my head off, I know he's the most popular superhero. I think if you look at DC Comics, their top 10 selling titles, if I'm not mistaken, are in some way connected to Batman. You know, that speaks for itself. So I know I'm a minority. I know I'm in the minority when it comes to not being impressed with old Bruce Wayne. But I have a reason. I have a reason for my insanity. Because I'm a humble human being. I like the thought of someone like Silver Surfer. He can breathe in outer space. Now, of course, it makes no sense. But this is the area of superheroes. And there's a fine line. There is a fine line between reality and the absurd. But In my understanding, I think Batman pushes the absurd to an unacceptable point, let's say. Because, I mean, what is the essence of a superhero? They have super abilities. Let's take the ultimate superhero. Superman comes from another planet and can do things that we mere mortals have no chance of doing. So that sets a precedence, right? Superheroes are beyond normal human beings. But of course, Batman, because now this is where I insult you fanboys, but don't take it personally. We're all friends here. We're all geeks in one nation. Right? This is where you fanboys are very lame. Right? You're sitting in your bedrooms and you're imagining that you could be Batman because he's got no powers. That could be you. It's possible. You could be the Batman. Listen, if we were superheroes, oh, sorry, let me start again. Who could beat Batman in a fight in real life? Maybe someone like John Jones, the mixed martial artist, possibly Bruce Lee, someone like a Mike Tyson. Now he's got, of course, I give it that Batman's got gadgets, etc. So what would they do against his gadgetry? That's a fair question. But hand to hand, could he really beat people like Bruce Lee or Muhammad Ali, etc., in a fight? Could he beat Sean Strickland in a fight? I don't think he could. Well, even if he could, he ain't beating Superman. But you know, fanboys, you guys out there, you convince yourself, but he'll learn all of their weak spots. And he'd be so clever, is that he'll know how to take him down. As if Superman is such an idiot. Last I checked, Superman's a pretty clever guy. He's not going to lose that easily. He's not that stupid. But there, that's me upsetting Fan Nation on this Saturday evening. But indeed, as a child, the old TV series of Batman, which is now referred to as being camp or cheesy. Cheesy or not, we love the Batman. And yeah, I can see the attraction of Batman. I can understand why he's the most popular superhero, because he's keeping it real. He's keeping it so real that it's even more ridiculous than the Mighty Thor. That's how real he's keeping it. I think I read in a comic once, Batman was fighting someone who had a submachine gun, and he counted the amount of rounds that were fired. Ah, dear. The nonsense that us fanboys accept in comic book. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I think that just about covers it for the spotting. I think I'm hearing things here. I cannot hear. Let me see if my mute is there. It is there. It sounds really quiet today for some reason. Okay, I'm going to trust in my readings from before that all's well, and it's loud enough. Okay, let me just put in one bit of shading here. And yeah, I can see a few of you are watching. Thank you so much for tuning in to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. What I'm working on here is Clash of the Goliaths. Black Goliath, Bill Foster versus original Goliath, Clint Barton. And I've done the spotting, no hatching. So let's work backwards. If we put on the spotting for Black Goliath, Let's make it a bit darker. Okay, now we can see where the hatching is. See the hatching? So on a separate layer, there's my spotting. Now look at what a good boy I am. I'm going to lock that layer because I don't think I'm such a smart aleck that I won't ink on the wrong layer. Now I've been doing this for years and I still make that terrible mistake of sometimes inking on the wrong layer. So look at that. My spotting is locked. My hatching is on a new layer. Let me take down my hatching opacity a bit. So I'm going to keep my hatching now on a separate layer. And the reason is, a lot of what I do with my art classes in mind. And of course, demonstrating inking in all of its stages is very important for my tutorials. And in fact, if you like this kind of thing, please do check out the Kickstarter that's still available. I'll run the trailer later. I mentioned that Dan Sen is in the house, he's watching. It was him that just told me that Clint Barton is Hawkeye. The original Hawkeye is also Goliath. And via Dan Sen's Thunder Zone company, publishing house, we got a Kickstarter that's still live. You can make a late pledge. And part of that Kickstarter, it's called Thunder Zone Returns. Part of that Kickstarter is I have a how to draw characters from the Thunder Zone included. So if you like some of what we're doing here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, be sure to go to Kickstarter. Check out the Kickstarter there from Thunder Zone Comics. And you can join me in some more good old tutorials regarding drawing superheroes. Over the years, I've done quite a few illustrations for Thunder Zone, a few covers, fan art, and promotional art. And doing that, I've had to draw a lot of the characters. And some of them have very, how to say, unique features. And in that book, you can draw along with me as it's all in steps. Everything's kind of done the same way I conduct this stream. Everything is done step by step so you can follow. There. Now you see that? That's not really a gradation technique I was using there. I'm always very wary of people who are just tuning in for the first time. So I might repeat myself quite often. See, on an earlier episode, or earlier episodes of Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, I was exploring the differences between what I call spikes in the hatching and when you bring the blacks. So when you bring the light out of the black with lines that are more adjacent, like this. You see, this is coming out of the black into the light. And I call this gradation. And the first person I noticed doing this, I think, back in the very late 1970s, was that master, John Byrne. I didn't notice anyone particularly doing this before him. And he often had an ink on him, a guy named Terry Austin. And I think Terry Austin, looking at Terry Austin's style of inking, I think he very much liked the gradation thing. You could see it was his thing. Then I disappeared from comics for quite some years. And when I came back, Image comics were very big. And I then found that gradation hatching was quite the norm. There was quite a few artists coming out of the darkness into light using more of this kind of hatching style. that you also notice as well that as I go through this, I may adjust certain bits of the hatching. I, of course, have that executive power because I am the pencil. Now, if you're out there and you're going to be inking other people's work, you do indeed have certain, how do I say this, freedoms to do things like that. But you of course have to check with your editor and the penciler to some degree. If you're an expert inker and you're working with a novice penciler or a penciler that's not so experienced, your input in these areas would of course be most welcomed by that penciler and the editor and publisher. I always tell the story of Joseph Rubinstein. He told me of a great penciler that he had to ink, and the guy was very famous, bit of a genius, but boy, did he leave a lot of detail up to Mr. Rubinstein to actually finish. And indeed, I mean, I can't really be angry with the guy. If I had Joseph Rubinstein inking me, I'd be inclined to not do anything. I said, Mr. Rubinstein, could you please draw this comic for me? You are quite a genius. But I think in all seriousness, I think that's a bit of what happened. Because apparently it wasn't just Joseph Rubinstein he did it to. This penciler, I shall name no names because I don't want to get myself or the Madness Entertainment Group into any litigious problems. But another inker that had to finish a lot of said talent's efforts was Klaus Janssen, another absolutely fantastic inker. And he did a lot of work to assist this legendary penciler in his finished product. In fact, I remember Stan Lee did something that it took me years to understand what it meant. Growing up, I would often see the term inker. So, okay, you're talking about the 1970s, late 1960s, right? So of course there's no internet. So when you read a word, you take it for you take it at face value. So inker, I pretty much guess that, okay, this guy puts the black ink on the image. Of course, I didn't really fully understand what it meant. Not 100%. But then I started seeing a word that Stan Lee would use, a word, embellishment. To this day, I'm not sure, but I've never ever seen anyone else use that term embellisher or embellishment for an inker. If anyone out there watching this has seen that word used by another editor somewhere, please drop me a note in the messages. Now, I think that this was an extreme piece of respect that Stan Lee, years before anyone, really gave respect to inkers. I think Stan Lee, when he used that word, it gave me a different understanding of what an inker did. In truth, at the beginning, I didn't know what the embellisher was doing. I didn't know it was the inker. But as I got older, and of course I discovered the terminologies, I come to really, really appreciate the genius in that term, that he called it an embellisher. I think it was a great piece of respect he paid to those men and women doing that job. Now, just then, you saw me, I was rendering the hair using a stippling technique because, Black Goliath, he's a black guy. And a good way of rendering that texture of hair is dots, that kind of dots. So here, I went in here and I just did dot, 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 dot. I'm not sure if you can hear that, if my microphone is picking that up. Not so good for your stylus, but there is, of course, textures that you could use in Clip Studio Paint and Photoshop, which could help you. You could just dump a whole mass of textures here. I'm still stuck in some of my old ways of when I used to ink traditionally. I must say, I often use digital the way I use traditional. A lot of that is deliberate because my biggest fear is going to a Comic Con and someone asking me for a commission and I can't draw. You get so used to being digital that you stop caring about if you make a mistake because you can just Control Z or Apple Z. Right? That is a real danger. Okay, good. Okay, I've got a comment here. Let's see who's commenting. Oh, it's Dan again. I have also seen breakdowns and finishes, perhaps a step further than embellisher. Yes, breakdowns, that first stage. Good point there, Dan. That first stage of penciling. In fact, funny, I'm doing some breakdowns at the moment now for Thunderzone Comics. You know what? As we're on the subject, let me call that. Shoot me out. I was just working on it, so hold on. Let me open that now. It makes for interesting. I think it's quite interesting. Hold on. Here we are. Yeah, I was just working on this earlier. I'm currently doing a 6-page short story for Thunderzone Comics. Right? Won't give me any spoilers here. Now you can see my 6 pages here. These are my breakdowns that I'm just currently working on. Now you can see I'm working on page 2. Now this is the thumbnail. Let me zoom in a bit more. Here was a thumbnail to my page 1. And these are all small. You can see these are all on one page. And I always say if something doesn't work at a small degree, it's not going to work large. So I'm drawing all my pages like this. This is a basic breakdown. I will paste this onto my actual page. Then I will sketch on top of them. Yeah, so great point there about the breakdowns. They're very, very useful. Okay, see, there's the page 1. I can show you what that page 1 actually turned out to be like. I opened it recently. It should be here in my... Why is that not in my recent open files? Typical. Look at that. Just as... Is it already open? Ladies and gentlemen, I've lost my file. What the? I had it open not long ago. Let me go to recent. Yeah. There's thumbs. Thunderzone comic. Yeah, there it is. Why is that not in my history? What? No, that's not the right one. How embarrassing, Jerome Hinds. Hang on, let me go to recents. There. This must be it. Yeah, there we are. Why that's not in my history, I have no idea. Right. So just quickly, here's my thumbs, right? Remember this that I just showed you? Here, this is the thumbnail. And that page turned out like this. Okay, here are the pencils to that page. So my thumbnails are very accurate to my finished pencils. So as Dan says, that he's also seen finishes as pertaining to embellishment, which is very true. And when I was younger, I didn't quite understand what that really meant. I closed the wrong file there. What a doofus. Right. So here we are with our hatching. Let's see how this is looking. Okay. Good. My goodness, I've been talking so much. I didn't even realize that I'd done that much. Good Lord. So I'm going to add a bit more hatching to the glove here. And here. And here. There was an inker named John Verpotin, I think, back in the 70s. And he had, I can notice his inking. It was quite a scratchy style. At first I didn't really like it, but it grew on me. I'm just going to add a few subtle bits of hatching to over here and under here. Now here, it's actually, it's a shadow coming from behind. I'm bringing the gradient out of that black there. I changed the rendering on the shorts quite a bit. Here. See, under his arm, if you think about the light source, if the light is coming from here, a bit might creep under his arm. That's why I've done that gradient under his arm in that way. Now I'm getting overexcited here. I'm second guessing myself to a point where I think I overdid it. Keep it simple, boy. I'm going back closer to my original thoughts on that bit of hatching there. Oh, how lovely. Oh, quite a few of you are tuned in, I can see. We've got a counter here, but apparently it's not accurate. But I can see a few of you are watching. Thank you so much for tuning in to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. And we've got one viewer, Mr. Dan Sen from Argo Comics and Thunder Zone, who was on here with me, Madness Entertainment Group. We were here earlier, very early this morning, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. He joined me and Raoul Missiu for Late Night Art Attack. In fact, I can show you what we got up to. Let me just run a quick recap of Late Night Art Attack. Goes out at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning. That's late Friday night every week. So we've got a brief recap of what happened this earlier today, what me and Raoul got up to. Dan was a guest with us, but here's a recap of what we got up to drawing-wise.
Previously on Late Night Art Attack.
you saw there, Raul was drawing Halloween. You know, there's a new Halloween movie coming out. And I was drawing a character named Law and Order. She's the latest release from Argo Comics. There's a Kickstarter out there at the moment. And Dan was with us talking about Law and Order. In fact, Raul drew Law and Order last week as well. And this week, I continued my Law and Order. That's Lauren, as in Lauren, L-A-U-R-E-N. Well, of course, when you hear that, you have to think of. But yeah, I was drawing Law and Order, and actually, I've still got it here. It's still on my thing. And what I'm doing now, you saw the spotting there, but I've just done the main inking on Law and Order, and I will get to the spotting probably during the week. And yeah, I probably put the spotting on during the week. I probably won't do it during the show next week. So it's great fun drawing her. She's a pint-sized cop, apparently. Great character. So that's what we were doing this morning on Late Night Art Attack. And it was very, very good fun talking to Dan. So please do check out the Kickstarter that's just launched on Law and Order. And we've also got the other Kickstarter I mentioned, which is Thunderzone Comics Returns. 5 great titles. One is my own SupaCross. It's available with 4 other titles. I will run a trailer for that before the end of the show today as well. Keep an eye out for that. Some of the other titles that's available in the Thunderzone Kickstarter, of which I have an art book, How to Draw Characters from the Thunderzone. It's volume 1, so actually it's drawing characters with minimal foreshortening. So the characters are mainly upright. There's a focus as well on drawing faces and heads and busts, so like from waist up, that's quite featured in there. And also, you know, the idea started out as a bit of fun, and I didn't want to make it too intense. But the more I got into it, there's certain things that I just couldn't avoid. Like, I decided to include how to draw hands and feet. It's not meant to be a full art tutorial book, so to speak, but anyone picking it up, I know if you're new to drawing feet and hands is very tough. So I thought to myself, you know what, I've got to include this. Because I know when I was younger, I wish I had more books on that kind of stuff. I had some books on anatomy, but they were real anatomical books. They didn't break things down into shapes as if you want to draw from imagination. They were just straight copying anatomy, not so much construction. And I never fully understood the gravity of comic artists until I did my A-level in art. Okay, I'm not sure what you call that in America. I don't think you have A-levels in America. It's a certification that would come after what I'm from UK. So the first certification would be an O-level. That's an ordinary level. Then after that, you get A-level. And I did an A-level in art. And you know, my teacher, lady named Pam, fantastic artist. And she set us an assignment called Dining Out. And now, okay, I'm in this class, I'm a comic geek, and I'm not even thinking about anyone else. So I did what you can imagine. Imagine Peter Parker is caught two-timing Gwen Stacy with Mary Jane. Okay, imagine that. And they're in a McDonald's. So you can picture that scene in your mind, yeah? So I'm thinking like a comic artist, and I've imagined such a scenario. There's a guy, not Peter Parker, but there's a guy sat in a fast food restaurant with a plate of fries and a drink thrown on his head. One girl looking angry and another girl looking shocked. But of course, I've drawn this from imagination. And Pam looks at me and goes, "Did you copy this?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Where does this image come from?" And I said, "My imagination." And to this day, I will never ever forget the look on her face. She went on to explain to me that why she was so flabbergasted was that the people in the image were proportionately the right size to the tables, the window behind, the door, all that stuff. So I'm thinking to myself, well, duh. But I had no idea that the average fine artist cannot do things like that. It didn't cross my mind. And then after that, she actually gave me some commissions. People would ask her to draw their family pets. And she'd bring the photographs to me. And I earned a bit of money. I was doing commission. I didn't even think about it. She was offloading her commissions to me and passed them off. And then she drew them. I never thought about that, But yeah. That's when I was first made to realize that comic artists, dare I say it, are a bit unique. Most people don't draw from scratch. They don't construct. They have no interest in it. If you're not drawing a comic, why would you need to construct something? You just copy it, right? You just draw from a reference, and that's it. It's only us lunatics would put ourselves through such hardship, you could say. Bit of the body missing here. And I think I should put a little bit of coming up from the shadows and the hair, and a little bit on his rib cage there. And I think we're pretty much there on Black Goliath. So we're working digitally, are we or are we not? And there's certain things that I always give instructions on here. Save! One more time. Save! Never forget to save. So there I am saving. Now I'll tell you a funny, I think I told the story last week of I had a friend, a graphic designer, used to work under me in an ad agency. And he had this habit of opening files, opening the original file, doing a bit of work, and then save as. So he's not overwriting the old work. And I warned him, I said to him, listen, you're gonna forget to do that one day. You're just gonna hit Control S. And back in these days, the amount of Command Zs that you can do was very limited. Now you can set programs where you could do hundreds of Control Zs. You can step backwards a long way. Back in the late 1990s, you'll be lucky if you got one. Step backwards. Undo. And I heard this almighty scream. Sorry, I'm doing a bit of spotting on the wrong layer here. I heard this almighty scream come from the studio. Yep, he overwrote the original file. And I said to him, it serves you right. I warned you. God damn. Okay. I'm just gonna put a bit of whoops. There I am. See that? Wrong length. I'm going to put a bit of gradation on this thigh muscle here. Okay, how are we doing for time? Oh, we still got 30 minutes left. How lovely. Right, so time to again save. Now look at that. I'm always guilty of racing off and not checking if I've got anything left. Look at that gradation there that I haven't done. Shocking, boy. Don't get so excited. Take your time. Take your time. So that's Black Goliath. Rendered. So let's switch him off and go to Goliath. Switch on his spotting there so we can see what we're going to shade. And I'm now going to put in, let me lock my inking spotting, new layer, hatching. And let's go in and start to hatch. Original Goliath. I'm saving first. So, the point of impact, remember we discussed, the light source is coming from the center where our two Goliaths will meet, will clash. So therefore, our light source is throwing shadow on the back of our big guy. And this is a family-friendly show, but we had a few ladies in here last week, and they were commenting that my Goliath here was lacking a certain piece of anatomy. Apparently wasn't, I'm gonna use a dubious, not dubious, a term that's not so offensive. He wasn't exactly packing, which I thought was quite unnecessary. Then I made the point that Goliath, whoops, wrong there, that Goliath is over 40 feet tall. I'm sure he's fine, but I digress. Look at that. I put that bit of shading there on the wrong layer. Busy talking nonsense, not concentrating. Here's our spotting. See our original spotting. Remember I mentioned earlier about being neat with your hatching, with your inking, with your work in general. And I wasn't. I missed that. So I'm going to add a bit of hatching in here. That's better. Now there's a thick thin thing that I like to do sometimes. That I just did on the back of that tricep. Now the back of this hand, I'm going to have to put some hatching here because it's behind the light source. So I'm going to add a bit of shading behind here. Now his bracelet has a bit of a texture to it that I'm going to do my thick, thin thing. So thick, thin, thick. Now I'm using Clip Studio paint, and my favorite inking pen is the mapping pen. There's lots of pens in the software for you to choose from, but I personally like the mapping pen. I'm going to put a bit more hatching on these fingers. to bring it into the light. And those knuckles are looking a bit anemic. Please give that man some power. That's better. And what the side of the hand here. Put in a bit of gradation here. Yes, I can see a few people are watching. Thank you so much for tuning in to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. I'm coming to you from Singapore. So it's, what time is it there now? It's 7 o'clock there, I believe. And it's 8 a.m. here in Singapore. In sunny Singapore. It's not sunny at the moment. And I hope, I'm really worried about this. I hope you guys out there can understand what I'm saying, because sometimes I listen back. And I'm originally from UK. And my parents were from Barbados. So I've got a British accent mixed with Barbadian. Now, you see that? I nearly said it. Do you notice that I nearly said barbarian? When I first came here to Singapore, people would ask me, where are you from? And I say, I'm British. And then they say, all right, but where are you really from? Of course, right? I'm British nationality, but anyone can tell I'm not exactly English, right? I'm not of the stock. I'm not of the, what's that word? I'm not of the soil. So I'd say to them, okay, my parents were from Barbados. And so then I went on to explain, a person from Barbados is Barbadian. And one guy here, he was more fluent in Chinese. He could speak English, but he was more comfortable speaking a dialect of Chinese called Hokkien. Right? You'll find that people in Taiwan, they speak a form of Hokkien dialect. And I said, I'm Barbadian. See, I keep nearly saying the wrong thing as well. So I said, yeah, I'm Barbadian. And he goes, and there was silence. Then some weeks went by, and my boss, Chinese lady, she says to me, I'm Jerome. When you first came to the company, we were a bit scared of you. But I thought, why on earth were you scared of me? And she goes, it's what you said. And I said, what did I say? She said, you said you were a barbarian. Jesus, Lord of mercy. In fact, listen, I've done a bit of stand-up comedy out here in Singapore. And whenever I tell that joke, it gets a lot of laughs. Jerome the Barbarian. It still cracks me up to this day. But then she realized, after some while, she got to realize that it wasn't the same thing. It was Barbadian. But of course, the clients, she had to inform them, no, he never said barbarian, he said Barbadian. And moving on from that story, what actually happened on top of that was, I was, again, trying to teach some of these clients where exactly Barbados was and, what the country's like. So Barbados is slightly smaller than Singapore, for example. So I would tell them that. And much lower population, but the GDP of Barbados is actually quite high. So I tried to explain to a lot of the people that I first met here that apparently the GDP was a bit similar to Singapore. But of course, the population was way smaller. So anyway, they still didn't quite understand exactly, where or what Barbados was. But then one day, you're talking about the 1990s here, okay? one of the founding fathers of Singapore was a man by the name of Lee Kuan Yew. And he was pretty much the mastermind behind the Singapore that you see today. So he's a very, very respected man. He's seen as like the godfather of this nation. One day he was in Parliament giving a speech, and he mentions Barbados, right? He was quite impressed with Barbados's ingenuity, infrastructure, all the rest of it, GDP, all that kind of stuff. So he says how great some of the ex-empire places are doing, and some are not doing so well, but Singapore being one that was doing well, and also Barbados. So of course, all these clients, Barbados, that's that place that our advertising agency guy comes from. So the next week comes after the speech, and my goodness, if you see the amount of Chinese tea that I got after that, because the great man recited Barbados by name. Interesting story. What I think it is. If you don't think that was interesting, tell me to shut up. I shouldn't say that. A lot of messages are going to come up now. Jerome, will you please shut up? Speaking of the devil, here is one message there. Is this Dan again? Let's have a look. Yeah, Dan's still here. What's Dan saying? I have a Silver Age character in Argo Comics named Green Goliath. All right, Dan. I want you to bring that out. Maybe I can add that to my gallery of Goliaths. For the last couple of months, I've been, of course, oh, that's dangerous. Look at that. I didn't lock my spotting layer. But lucky I am hatching on the right layer. Terrible. Yes, Dan, please bring that out. I would like to add him to my gallery of giant men and Goliaths. There's been quite a few. Well, there's been two more over the last couple of months. I think the first one was Giant Man. Then we did Yellow and Blue Goliath. Now we're doing these two Goliaths. Good, that's a spotting there. Green Goliath. My first creation of an outsized character was a character I had named Gargantua. But I've never drawn him in a comic. In fact, the last time I drew him, I was about 16 years old, and I've since lost that image. But I think I can remember what he looks like. Okay, we're going to hatch the legs. Let's see if we can finish this before the end of the show. How long we got left? 15 minutes. 15 minutes we got left. Let's see if we can finish our hatching and therefore spotting. And then next week, we get onto some coloring. I don't like to do anything on the images while I'm away. You know, I like to pick up the next week from exactly where I left off the week prior, because going through the entire process from start to finish is a major part of what I'm trying to do here. Those of you watching, thanks once again for tuning in. And thanks, Dan, for tuning in. I'm sure you've got better things to do with your time. I shouldn't be saying that. That is very counterproductive, you could say. Okay, good. I've drastically changed a lot of the hatching on these boots. I've taken some real creative license here. Yee! That is not nice. Inconsistent hatching. Not a fan. I've been looking at old comic art a lot. There's a lot of Facebook groups that I'm in. So every day they post work from some of the old greats. And you know, there's something called through the eyes of a child. I'm telling you that when I was younger, those drawings used to look a lot more complex than they do, or after I became an adult, I didn't realize that those drawings weren't that complex. And now, even more so when I look back at some of my favorite artists, the stuff that they were doing really appeared complex to me at the time. But now that I look at it, it's not complex, but what it is, it's, what's the word I'm looking for here? I've got to find the right word. It's no line. Every line has a definite intention. What sometimes confuses would-be comic artists, myself included, is you can sometimes confuse accuracy for complication. Like, you think that by adding more detail, you're making your drawing look more competent. Now, that can happen. Okay, there's a few artists out there who add a lot of detail. If you actually analyze their drawing, it's not that accurate. But they are able to fool certain people with the complexities of what they've done. But what I'm saying is, you don't need to do something complex for it to be extraordinarily nice. And that is what a lot of those artists of yesteryear had going for them. And it reminds me a bit of what Picasso said. Picasso said he had to learn how to undraw. I remember when I first heard that, I didn't understand what he meant at first. But sometimes to see something in its purity, you got to look at things in a certain light that just on the surface might not be that evident. But Picasso, you see, was a genius. He could draw a portrait, apparently when he was 6 years old. We're not all geniuses. And some of these comic artists that I've idolized, people like Neil Adams, these guys were geniuses. And sometimes you mustn't compare yourself to some of these people because they're a bit inhuman. And of course, with that comes eccentricities. You know, you'll hear stories about comic artists being a bit odd. A lot of the very gifted ones can appear to be a bit strange. Well, that comes with the territory. Geniuses are often a bit off. Okay, so that just leaves the hair. Now, our man is blonde. So most of the shadows go towards the back of the head. So I'm going to give him some definitive shadow. His hair swept backwards. Now here, I'm going to do my left, right, or up, down, hatch, top of the head. Give you some sweeping curls, man. I'm going to put a bit of highlight here. Now this is facing the light, so I can't put too much detail here. I'm going to leave that more to the back, like here. Add a bit more left, right to that render. Now as it goes around the back of the head, but remember, to change your direction. I ink with a normal brush or brush pen like this as well. A brush pen can do this. A brush can do it with a brush, but not quite so easily. I'm going to take that into that shadow there. Now here, we're having to use a spikes technique because here doesn't really lend itself to the gradation thing. Oh, my brush is shrunk in size. Yeah. There's an inker from yesteryear, a guy named Sid Shores. I was such a retard when I was younger that I used to call him Side Shores. What the hell? Side Shores, man. And I loved the way he would ink. Apparently he came from the golden age, so he was quite an old inker. But he definitely, I loved the way how he hatched. He did some inking on a Jack Kirby comic. I think it was Captain America 108. Okay, now I'm not sure if I should be telling you this. It might make me seem a bit eccentric. That comic looked so good to me. I feigned sickness so I didn't have to go to school, just so I could stay home to read that comic and admire the artwork. Now, I'd never ever played truant before. I'd never swung off to the shopping mall and my parents thought I was in school. I've never done that. But I have to confess that I pretended I was sick that day because I wanted to stay home and read my Captain America comic. Does that make me a bad person? Okay, so let's see what we got going on. I think we can put a bit of my mechanical inking on this earpiece. Thick, thin, thick, thick, thin, thick. Let me come into the light. Okay. Now, do I need to put anything? Whoops, it's shorts. Mr. Hinds, you're notorious for not finishing your tasks before you're ready to race off to the next one. So let's just put in a bit of shading here. I've got a football match later, or what you guys call soccer. And it's a bit of a spectacle. And with this football team, this soccer team that I play with, I'm always the oldest guy on the pitch. Oh dear. And I've been doing a few, what do you call it? Doddery things that old people do. And someone called me Joe Biden. So when they put out the list, you know when someone insults you or calls your name, you should embrace it. So the WhatsApp group every week, when you put your name, if you're available for the match, and I'll put myself down as Biden. Okay, I think I'm there. I don't want to put any more shading on the metal part of the belt. I want to keep that a bit clean. I'll put in an accent here. That'll do for that. Good. Let me switch off my pencils. Let's switch on our black glide. Okay, so we've done our hatching. So I'm going to zoom in to the, whoops, black glide has got his pencils on. Will you please turn that off? Okay. So there's our inking done. I shall zoom in across to the various parts so you can see the line work. And you might notice that there's like a paper texture behind. Yes, I like to draw, I like to pencil on a paper texture. And I've got white behind them to knock out. See, if I switch off my white out, now you can see Goliath through black Goliath. So the white out is just there so we can see what we're doing. And I'm just looking at black Goliath. And there should be a bit of hatching here. Hang on. That's why you always do a last inspection. Sometimes you could be too close to the artwork and you miss certain things. There. Whoops. Okay. So we're up close. That's all looking pretty decent. I think we're ready for our colors to go in next week. Yes, we're ready for our colors to go in next week. So thanks once again. Thanks so much for tuning in to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. I will be here again Friday night, Saturday morning, 1 a.m. with Late Night Art Attack with Raoul Messieu, where we draw different things, depends on what's going on. We'll be here back for that. That's called Late Night Art Attack. And 6 p.m. on a Saturday is Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, which is what you are currently tuned into. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to play a couple of trailers here before the end credits. And I hope to see you back here again. Same time, same place, same vibes. Peace.
Ozzy, what are you doing? Come and have a look at this lovely book that was sent over.
You're wrapping in the perpendicular.
Oh, go on and spit the bat out your mouth. No one can understand you like that.
Say how 5 dentists and all.
Oh, well, that's not much better. Ozzy, why don't you sing to me? I can always understand you when you sing to me.
Fucking my brains. What is this my publisher sent me? Inked in black with art so sweet.
So what do you think? Do you like it?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
If you like stories about truth, honor, and justice, then you should check out MAGA Man. It is Donald Trump as many now see him, the defender of justice and a warrior for peace through strength. MAGA Man is an all-American style 22-page comic book, so get over to fundmycomic.com and support the culture of truth, honor, and justice. With MAGA Man, the most needed hero of all. MAGA Man.
Thunderzone Comics returns. 5 all-new comics, Sumo Boy, Weirdo, Marshall Strong, Big House Blues, and SupaCross, plus a free how to draw characters from the Thunder Zone. Bringing you back all 5 new releases. The Kickstarter campaign is live now.
If you missed the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. Madness Entertainment Group.